You're tuned to Mountain States Policy Center. In the fight for limited government, conservative free market solutions and ideas that work for everyone. We take a back seat to no one. It's time for Peak Policy from Mountain States Policy Center.
And welcome to Peak Policy here at Mountain States Policy Center. I'm Chris Cargill, the President and CEO of Mountain States Policy Center. First of all, we want to wish you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. We appreciate you being here, and we know it's a busy time of year, so thank you for being here on Peak Policy. For those of you who are unaware, Mountain States Policy Center is a free market think tank. So if you've heard of groups like the Heritage Foundation or the American Enterprise Institute, those are national think tanks. We're a think tank on a regional or statewide level based here in Idaho, but cover policy issues from Montana, Wyoming, and parts of Eastern Washington as well. Your best source, if you want to learn more about Mountain States Policy Center, is mountainstatespolicy.org. That's our website. You can jump online there at any time to find out more information about the research that we're working on, more background about the information, and to sign up to become a supporter or at least get an email subscription on mountainstatespolicy.org. We are delighted, as we are with every Peak Policy conversation, to have one of the key players in policy in the state of Idaho join us today, and that is Senator Chuck Winder of the 20th District. Senator Winder, of course, is also the President Pro Tem of the Idaho State Senate. And Senator Winder, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Look forward to the conversation.
Well, you know, it's always an interesting conversation, depending on who you're talking to, what side of the aisle they're on, maybe their experience. Before we kind of get into a preview of the next legislative session and some of the things that you and your colleagues are going to be working on, can you tell us about your impressions so far of Mountain States Policy Center and why our organization is going to be key to the work that you do in Boise?
Sure. I think the fact that you've come to Idaho is very important. It's a very critical time in Idaho. I believe that you can provide an outstanding service to the citizens of Idaho as you provide information on various issues. We do have an organization in the state that has their point of view, and they've communicated very well with people over the years. And I think this is really an effort to provide a non-biased, non-political type of approach at providing public information to educate the public.
Absolutely. And for folks who, again, want to know more information, you can go to mountainstatespolicy.org. That's our website. In fact, Senator, a gentleman you know all too well, Scott Shaner, is joining our board of directors, and will
Please be happy, because I approached them and they'd asked me what they do to, help in Idaho, and so I suggested they talk to you. And I'm glad Scott's given you the time to be on your board. He's a good thinker and a good conservative person and a member of our community here in Boise.
Absolutely. And Scott will be an invaluable part of our board. And if you want to see all of our board members, of course, you can go to mountainstatespolicy.org. Okay, Senator, let's talk about some of the top issues that are going on as we approach the legislative session here in just a few weeks. As you know, there is a huge crop of incoming new legislators who have never been in government before necessarily, or maybe they have, but they don't necessarily have the state-wide experience. What are you looking forward to the most with these new incoming legislators? And then maybe what's one thing you say, well, we got to make sure we accomplish that with this new crop?
Okay. Well, first of all, we did have a 50% turnover in the Senate. Some of those people are coming over from the House, so they do have some experience. But we're going to have a whole crop, as you call them, of new senators and new House members as well that have never served in a public office before. So I think that's going to be a challenge for them just to get in and learn. It seems like it takes a year or two just to kind of figure out the system and to get things done, develop relationships. And like anything else in life, getting legislation done is relational. And I think I always try to remind our new coming people in three numbers: 36, 18, and 1. Takes 36 House members, 18 senators, and one governor to get a piece of legislation passed. So you've got to come in and develop those relationships. And I believe the crop we've got coming in are going to do that. One of the things I'm looking forward to is getting to know them better, getting to know what their desires are, kind of where they're headed, kind of things that they're interested in. And we've been having those conversations since the primary was over, and certainly since the general was completed in November. So I would say just getting to know them and working with them and helping them accomplish their goals.
It is going to be an interesting dynamic in Boise, Senator, and we'll see all sorts of different issues, I'm sure, come up. But two of the issues I want to kind of just zoom in on here a little bit is first of all what you all accomplished in the last special session, the extraordinary session in September, where from our point of view, the great part about that was the lowering of the state income tax to a flat rate, which is what we were recommending at MSPC, and I know others had been looking at that for quite some time as well. Is there going to be a room, Senator, to look at further reductions of either the income tax or the property tax or maybe even the sales tax as you and your colleagues start to have these conversations?
Well, I think, you're going to look at all those things. One of the key issues will be property tax. I think one of the first pieces of legislation we'll see will be using a portion of the sales tax income to offset property tax. I think that's a good approach, and the state has had a windfall because of the growth of the communities, the cities, the regional communities, and so I think it's up to the state to share some of that windfall back with the citizens. I think we're the only state in the country that actually lowered tax rates 3 times in a row and provided rebates. We've given back several $billion in rebates and tax reductions over the last couple of years. I think we'll have an opportunity to look at those issues again. We'll take up the grocery tax, and look at that and see if we can't figure that out because there seems to be a concern about that and the impact it has on our citizens. But I think we'll have lots of taxing issues that we have to deal with. Most of them are going to be to lower taxes. So I don't think anybody wants to increase any taxes in Idaho. We've got a windfall, 1.5 billion after we've given these other reductions. So we have some room to do a lot of things and to get some money back to the people.
And I know Senator Crow is one of those who's working on the property tax bill, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. He's the lead on the Senate side.
Yeah. So we'll hopefully see some of those bills coming up here in the next few weeks. Idaho, of course, does not have pre-filed bills. We're seeing a lot of pre-filed bills in other states, Senator. So it's kind of strange to see all these bills coming in from other states, and then Idaho's a little silent. But just for people who know, there's work going on behind the scenes, and we'll start to see those bills coming up in the next few weeks.
I think states like Utah only have a 6-week session, so they've got bills, and they have committees that go on all year long, and so ours is a little different approach at it. A lot of the work doesn't get done until the people actually get here.
Right, which is probably the better way to do it, quite frankly. Yep. In terms of education funding, the special session saw $400 million more going into K through 12. Now you and your colleagues get to decide how you're going to spend that money. What are some of the ideas that are out there to try to make sure it's actually getting to the classroom, making a difference, doing all the things that of course we want to see happen?
Right. And I think we come back to parental choice, where they can send their kids. I think you'll see some pressure to move more money to follow the students, and some of those will be into private schools. We do have a constitutional requirement to provide a thorough and free education system for every citizen K through 12 in Idaho. So we still have that obligation, but I also think we have the opportunity to really look at how we distribute money. We put up $50 million over the summer to help parents with the cost of remote learning and that type of thing, to help them get their kids back up to speed. So I think that's an important part of it, and we'll look at that. We'll look at continued funding for education, career development for our teachers. So I think there'll be a lot of issues. It's going to be an interesting session, and I think we'll will indeed make some changes in the way funds are distributed throughout the state.
Yeah, Senator, you've probably seen what some of the other states have been doing. Of course, this issue has come to a head in places like Arizona and Tennessee and even West Virginia. The West Virginia Supreme Court, as you're probably aware, just a few weeks ago, because West Virginia has a similar requirement in their constitution about funding K through 12. The West Virginia Supreme Court came out and said, look, there's no reason the legislature can't do both things.
Right.
And I thought that was an interesting ruling that came out of West Virginia that could potentially impact the state of Idaho as well. That was going to be one of my questions, Senator, to you as well, is let's zoom in a little more on the school choice issue and some of the options that are out there. And again, it's I think some folks make the mistake of saying, well, if you're in favor of school choice or parental freedom, you want to shut down the public schools. And that's the exact opposite of school choice, it seems.
Yeah, and I think, there are different perspectives on that. I think there are some that have given up on the public school system, and there are others that realize we still have that constitutional obligations. But I do think we have the luxury now to do both. And we have a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that came out of an Ohio case, I believe is where it came from, that basically said the states could use taxpayer money for the benefit of their students in private institutions. So I think you'll see some pressure there. Idaho doesn't have a lot of private K through 12s, but I think that funding opportunity will be there. I think we have the luxury to be able to do both right now.
Absolutely. Go to mountainstatespolicy.org if you want to read more about this issue and the other issues that are going to be coming up in the legislative session. We're talking today with Senator Chuck Winder, of course, the President Pro Tem of the Idaho State Senate from the 20th District. That is West Boise and Meridian as well. Senator, what are some of the other top issues that you're going to be paying attention to as the legislature gavels into session?
Well, we always have our water issues in Idaho. We almost had a disaster last year with a drought. Fortunately, we got a lot of rain and snow in May and June last year and diverted most of that. It looks like we're going to have a good snow year, but we always look at how we do aquifer recharge, how we'll look at the Upper Snake and the impact that potential for water calls had this year. So I think there'll be a lot of things that way. Transportation's in pretty good shape. We're going to look at mental health issues. We'll look at health and welfare issues. The Medicaid expansion will be taken up this year because it's up for its review. So that'll be a key issue, I think, as you look at the impact on our state budget. And we'll deal with a lot of those kind of things. But natural resources are always a big issue. Getting our budget done, that's the only thing we're obligated to do, is to have a balanced budget when we leave. So a lot of time will be spent on the budget and various issues there.
Is there any issue kind of in the background, Senator, that you're maybe hearing a little bit about, but folks would say, oh, wow, I didn't expect that to necessarily come up this session?
Well, I think you'll see a lot of social issues brought up. There seems to be an undercurrent throughout our state of concern for what's going on in our schools, libraries, and our public libraries, and the availability of material that may be not age appropriate. So I think you'll see some things that way.
Senator Chuck Winder is the President Pro Tem of the Idaho State Senate from the 20th District. Senator, good luck to you this legislative session. Hopefully it'll be a painless experience for you.
It never is. It's also a challenge, and it's also something we do because I consider ourselves public servants trying to serve the needs of our state.
Well, thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you in Boise during session.
Look forward to it.
And we will be back here in just a few moments with our continuing coverage here on Mountain States Policy Center's Peak Policy. Stay with us.
The region is taking notice of Mountain States Policy Center.
Organizations like yours especially can make a really profound difference.
Definitely make sure you guys follow Chris and his work.
A good think tank is going to actually discuss the nuts and bolts, why something works well.
I like the way you're going about this, where you're viewing that this is an educational enterprise. And
Join the nation's fastest growing free market think tank at mountainstatespolicy.org.
Tired of what it's costing to fill up your gas tank? Who should you blame? A large portion of the cost you pay per gallon goes to the government. In fact, it can be 20 to 30% of the overall cost, but you'd never know. That's because the gas tax is hidden in the price of the product. Virtually nothing else we buy has the tax hidden, so why should gas? What we need is gas tax transparency, such as stickers placed on pumps to inform everyone how much they're paying to the government. Learn more at mountainstatespolicy.org.
Well, welcome back to Peak Policy here at Mountain States Policy Center. I'm Chris Cargill. I want to thank Senator Chuck Winder for joining us today on Peak Policy. Appreciate all of the legislators who have been with us throughout our first 3 or 4 months here at Mountain States Policy Center. If you want to go on and listen to more of these interviews, you can go onto our YouTube page or our social media channels as well. That will get you the information you need. And as I was telling you earlier, the best place to go for information about Mountain States Policy Center is mountainstatespolicy.org. You can read our Idaho poll, which is getting a lot of attention, and you can find out more about the information or the organization and our information and our blog at mountainstatespolicy.org. Just a quick reminder that our annual spring dinner is coming up on April 28th at the Coeur d'Alene Inn. Former Congressman Trey Gowdy will be with us. He is our keynote speaker. You can go to mountainstatespolicy.org to get tickets there. Just click on events, and we hope to see you on Friday, April 28th in Coeur d'Alene. It's hard to believe that spring is right around the corner, but it certainly is. For Senator Chuck Winder and all of us at Mountain States Policy Center, thank you very much for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching Mountain States Policy Center. To stay up to date on the work of MSPC, visit mountainstatespolicy.org or find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Mountain States Policy Center. Free markets first.